Hi there, this is David and welcome to my listing of 10 short but enjoyable action RPGs for working adults. When I was a kid, I had all the time in the world to sink into massive epics, and while I still do play those games on occasion, now I'm a busy guy with a family, and it's nice to be able to knock a game out in one weekend. Keep in mind though, this is not just going to be me listing off some random short action RPGs. Everything here has been vetted by me. I have played, enjoyed, and completed them all in less than 20 hours. Also, I'm not going to be ranking them here, I'll be listing them in alphabetical order instead. So, let's get started. Number 1, 3D Game Heroes, released for the PlayStation 3. At first glance, you may think that this is nothing more than a Zelda clone, and while it definitely took inspiration from it, it's a whole lot more. Whereas Zelda is a serious journey through Hyrule to defeat Ganon and save the princess, 3D Game Heroes is much more lighthearted, even poking fun at itself at times, and taking inspiration from the Dragon Warrior series as well. Fans of both franchises will feel right at home here with the familiar tools for dungeon exploration, from boomerangs to bombs to hookshots, along with the appropriate puzzles. A nice touch is that rather than shooting a sword beam across the screen when you're at full health, your sword literally encompasses the entire screen whenever it's swung. But don't be fooled that the quest is easy because of this. Far from it. Old School Challenge is the name of the game here. So, if you're up for a classic jaunt on modern hardware, give this game a shot. Number 2, Tallis, released for the NES and Game Boy Color. Even though this game ranks up there as one of the most difficult games that I've ever played, I still really like it. The world is a joy to explore, and the magic system is fun to fool around with. For an older game, there's a lot to see and do here. Combat is fun since you can shoot your sword beam across the screen, the music's pretty damn good, and the story is just filled with interesting characters. One thing that I would recommend for you to do though is keep a guide close at hand, because there are many moments that can easily make you get stuck. And rather than wandering around aimlessly looking for a solution for hours on end like I used to do, it's so much better to just run over to game FAQs and figure it out when you're short on time. You could conceivably even beat this in a single sitting if you're dedicated, because I would estimate that if you know what you're doing, you could finish it in about 5 to 8 hours. Number 3, Final Fantasy Adventure, Secret of Mana, and Trials of Mana, released for the Game Boy, SNES, PS4, and Nintendo Switch. Here, we're looking at the first 3 games in the Mana series, and these 3 are probably my favorite action RPGs of all time. I played through the first 2 games many times as a kid, and the third game many times as a young adult when it was finally translated. If Final Fantasy Adventure looks too archaic though, there is a remake on the Game Boy Advance. But to me, that iteration lacked the soul of the original, so I can't really recommend it in good faith. Also, there are 2 other action-oriented Mana games, Legend of Mana and Dawn of Mana, and while they are short too, I can't really recommend them either because quite simply, I didn't like them. The first game in the series will probably take you 10 hours, then the next 2 around 20 each. One thing to note though, you could play through Child of Mana 3 times with different heroes in order to see all the different storyline paths that you could possibly take, and because they're multiplayer, it's nice to be able to play through them with your loved ones. Number 4, Lufia Curse of the Sinistrals, released for the DS. I don't know how I feel about recommending this game. On one hand, it's an action remake of one of the best RPGs ever conceived, Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals. On the other hand though, it's kind of bastardized. However, if you don't have the time or patience for the SNES masterpiece, this fun 15-hour game might be up your alley. Similarly to Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, if you go into it with an open mind and play it for what it is, you'll find a solid game filled with puzzles, voice acting, tons of secrets, and character customization. It's essentially a bare-bones, boiled-down modern version of Maxim's classic Journey. Just don't go into it expecting typical turn-based Lufia. Number 5, Muramasa the Demon Blade, released for the Wii and PlayStation Vita. Unlike pretty much all the other games on this list, Muramasa is a side-scrolling action RPG kinda like Golden Axe, only it's set in ancient Japan and filled to the brim with RPG elements. Because there's not really exploration like the other games on the list, you can complete it in roughly 12 hours, It's action-packed, straightforward, streamlined experience. Visually, it's gorgeous, and over the course of the game you'll control two different heroes, a princess and a ninja, as they explore the Metroidvania-type world. And don't worry about it being on the Wii because motion controls are thankfully nowhere to be found. Another thing to mention is that if you're busy and you can only play on portables, there is a port of it available on the Vita. So if you like Princess Crown, be sure to check out the spiritual successor. Number 6. Nier, released for the PS3, Xbox 360, and PC. At its heart and soul, Nier is an action RPG, but there's smatterings of other genres in there as well, such as shooting, overhead and side-scrolling exploration as well. The storyline is kind of basic though. You play as a hideously ugly delivery man who's trying to find a cure for his diseased daughter. And speaking of deliveries, I would highly recommend that if you're like me and you got a lot of things going on, just completely ignore all the endless, mundane fetch quests that the game tries to send you on. Instead, focus on the amazing story and the characters, and just don't get bogged down with the other extraneous junk. Also, fans of the Drakengard series would do well to look into Nier, since it is a spin-off of the first game after all. Your first playthrough won't take you any more than 10 hours, then if you want to, you can shoot for other endings which should only take you about 2 to 3 hours to run through. All in all, it's a great game. Number 7. Parasite Eve 1 and 2, released for the original PlayStation. I've spoken about this game before in my Strangest RPG series, and while some of you might be thinking that I'm kind of stretching the definition of what an action RPG is, I don't think that I am. Yeah, you transition to a second screen for battles, but you do that in Tales and Star Ocean as well, and those are solidly action RPGs. Both games follow police officer Aya Brea in New York City, who's on a mission to destroy Eve, who's attempting to kill off humanity using spontaneous human combustion. Odd, I know, but still good. Also, a quick note for any Resident Evil fans out there. The person responsible for writing and directing those games is the same man who created these, so fans be on the lookout. These two games are both on the short side as long as you stick to the main story, and it will last you a good 10 to 15 hours each. Number 8. Secret of Evermore, released for the SNES. This is one of my absolute favorite childhood games, taking tons of inspiration from the Mana series. I even thought that this was a sequel to Secret of Mana when I was a kid. It was only with the advent of the internet that I learned better. This is actually an American-developed game by Square, hence the great translation and inside movie jokes. I love it so much that I even went so far as to let's play it on my channel. The story revolves around a boy and his dog in the fantastical world of Evermore, which is divided up into 4 distinct regions based upon Earth's history. From the dinosaur-infested Prehistorica, to the classical Greco-Roman-inspired Antigua, to Gothica, representing the Middle Ages, all the way to the far-flung Omnitopia, a futuristic spaceship floating over the land. I think that the most unique aspect of the magic system, though, because instead of using MP, you have to collect alchemy ingredients and combine them all to cast spells. Number 9. Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma, all released for the SNES, as well as the Grand Stream Saga, released on the PlayStation. These 4 games all constitute what is known as the Heaven and Earth Quadrilogy, and all of them are on the short side, but Terranigma will take you a bit longer than the others. Coming out the earliest, Soul Blazer is pretty basic but fun. You play as a hero who was sent to Earth by the Master to restore people back to life. Essentially, their souls are trapped, and as you progress, you will free more people, opening up towns and treasures. Illusion of Gaia follows the adventures of Will, as he goes around the world to some real and some fantastical ruins, such as Angkor Wat, the Great Wall of China, and the lost continent of Mu. Terranigma is a strange bird, taking place in the real world and following Ark as he restores the lost continents of the world. The criminally ugly but underrated Grand Stream Saga ties up the series as it follows Eon on his journey to raise up the continents and keep them from falling into the sea. Number 10. The entire Ys series, well, except for Ys 8, released for multiple systems throughout the years, but now the majority of them are on the PSP as well as the PC. This is the great granddaddy of action RPGs. Each adventure, except for Origins, follows Adol as he's shipwrecked and washed up on a new land that he has to save. For the first 2 games, I would recommend playing the TurboGrafx 16 version because it combines the 2 into 1. For the third, I would play the PSP version simply because the SNES original is like the hardest thing ever. The 4th game is an odd bird though, because there's a version for the SNES and the TurboGrafx 16, but they're 2 entirely different games and they both warrant a playthrough. While Memories of a Celceta for the Vita and PC is the canonical version, that one might take you longer than 20 hours. Ys 5 has 2 versions as well for the SNES. Play the original though, because the expert version just ramps with the difficulty and ain't no one got time for that. Ys 6 is for the PS2 and it's very short at probably 10 hours, and Ys 7 takes the series on a whole other direction with multiple party members. It's a lot of fun, and if you like the mana games, I would definitely check it out. Well, that's it for 10 short but enjoyable action RPGs for working adults. I hope that you liked this video, and what are some other short games that you would recommend to others? Also, be on the lookout for the next part, where I'm going to address some short strategy RPGs as well. If you like this video and what I do here on the channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. A link to it can be found in the video description. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.